Hi, this is Matt at LSAT Lab, and today's lesson is on standard grouping games in the logic game section. Standard grouping games make up about 28% of all logic games, making them a very common game type. It's important that you master this one, and it's going to be one that will probably bother you for a little while because there's so much variety within it. The plan for today is to start with an example game, and then to talk about some of the characteristics of standard grouping games that we need to pay attention to. So for example, whether the game is closed or open, how to identify frames, what to do when the game is non-one-to-one, and how does that create itself, and then what do you do when you have subgroups or different kinds of players within the logic game. So let's start with the example game. Go ahead and take a minute and try to set this game up. And what I mean by that is come up with a game board that you can use in order to create hypotheticals and test cases along the way as you're answering the questions. Notate the rules in a way that's clear and consistent, and make any inferences that follow from those rules. So essentially we have the explicit rules, and then we have the implicit rules. If you can do those three things, hit pause, and then play again when you're ready to check your work, and we'll review it together. Step one in our process is to start with the game board. So inside of the scenario, that initial paragraph, we have information. So 7 job candidates, F, G, H, I, K, L, and M will be evaluated by 4 human resource officers, R, S, T, and U. It's important to note that we have got more job applicants than human resource officers, but essentially we've got these 2 variable sets. It's hard to say exactly what's going to happen with them. So the scenario tells us that each application will be evaluated by exactly 1 officer. So we're going to have 1 F, 1 G, 1 H, 1 I, 1 K, 1 L, 1 M in a valid hypothetical. And each officer will evaluate at least 1 application, meaning maybe more than 1 application. So those are our teams. Our teams are going to be the human resource officers. And then we're going to put the candidates onto those teams. So we're going to set up a column chart where our officers represent columns and then our candidates represent the players. We don't exactly know how many candidates each of the officers reviews. So some games are open like this where we don't know. Some games will be closed where we can put in some slots. But in this case, we'll do this game open without any slots. So now that we've got the game board, we should go check out the rules. The first rule tells us that G's application must be evaluated by U. So we can go ahead and put G directly onto the game board in the U column. The second rule tells us that F's application must be evaluated by the same officer who evaluates L's application. So make sure that F and L go to the same team. We'll put them in a block. The third rule tells us that neither H's application nor M's application can be evaluated by the same officer who evaluates I. H and I can't be together, and M and I can't be together. These create anti-blocks. As the second rule created a block, the third rule is creating a couple of anti-blocks. And that's pretty common with standard grouping games. These games tend to be about blocks, who's together, and anti-blocks, who's not together. The fourth rule tells us that the officer who evaluates K's application cannot evaluate any other applications. So wherever K goes, it's going to be the only one going there by itself. And finally, the fifth rule tells us that S must evaluate more of the applications than T. So in terms of how many applications go to each officer, more need to go to S than go to T. We can notate that as S is greater than T, but I think we're going to need to come back to that rule in order to truly see the real impact there. So now that we've got the game board set up and the rules notated, we're ready to move to the inferences. And so inferences are essentially the implicit rules, the things that they didn't say but that are implied by the things that they did. Are there any inferences here? Well, not much. But because this game is open, meaning we don't know how many candidates are going to go to each officer, we should probably consider that. So let's revisit the fact that S is going to review more applications than T. If S has more than T, we should consider what's possible numerically. What's the maximum number of applications that any one officer could review? What's the maximum number of officers that could review more than one application? And if we think about it, we have each application will be evaluated by exactly 1 officer. So they're going to go once. There's 7 of them. And each officer will evaluate at least 1 application. So there's 4 officers. If we put 1 into each of them, that leaves us with 3 left over. And we can imagine, well, we could do something like, 4, 1, 1, 1, right, where there's going to be 3 officers that review 1 application and 1 officer that reviews 4. Or there might be 2 officers that review 1 application, 1 that reviews 2, and 1 that reviews 3. Or possibly there may be a scenario where 1 of the officers reviews 1 application and 3 of the officers review 2. But that's it. There isn't much else here lurking hidden underneath the rules. There might be an opportunity for frames, but I don't think you necessarily need to take it. Beyond the numerical distributions, it doesn't really look like there's that much here in terms of inferences. Inferences are things that have to be true based off of the rules, but the rules here aren't creating things that must be the case. There's lots of things that could be the case, but nothing that is guaranteed at this point. So let's go ahead and move on to the questions. So here's the first question. Go ahead and hit pause, see if you can find the right answer, and when you're ready to check your work, hit play again, and we'll look at it together. All right, so this is a typical rules question. The first question out of the gate is often simply testing whether we understood the rules correctly. We're going to take the rules and apply them one at a time, knock out wrong answer choices. When we get done with the rules, only one answer choice should remain. So let's start with the rule that says that F and L need to be together, anywhere that F and L are not together. So for example, in B, we can get rid of B because they're not together. The next rule tells us that H and I cannot be together, nor can M and I. If we look at the answer choices, we'll see that in C, it has H and I together, so we can get rid of that. The next rule tells us that K has to be by itself. If we ever see K with someone else, we can get rid of D. We know that S needs to review more applications than T. So in A, S is reviewing 3 and T is reviewing 1. In E, S is reviewing 2 and T is reviewing 1, so that's fine. One more rule over in the game board. Sometimes we check the rules area first and then forget what's in the game board. If you're ever worried about missing a rule, you can simply go off the written rules as opposed to off of your notated version of the rules. This does give you a chance to double check your work or your understanding of how the rules work. So then the last thing we'll check is that G is reviewed by you. And in A, G is reviewed by you. And in E, G is not reviewed by you. So we can get rid of E. That leaves us with answer choice A as the right answer. So here's the next question in the set. We're going to look at all of the questions here first, and then we're going to go look at some of the other kinds of characteristics that we need to be ready for on standard grouping games. Hit pause, see if you can find the right answer, and when you're ready to check your work, hit play again. All right, welcome back. So if H is application is evaluated by R, we can go ahead and plug H into R. This is a local question asking us, okay, what do we know based off of this information? What we want to do is run with it as much as we can. We may not always be able to, but if we can, look for the implications of that new information. It almost always has an implication. So you might start by figuring out who's left, or what does putting H into R trigger? In this case, putting H into R doesn't really trigger much. You might start thinking about who's left, and so you've got this FL block, and you might be thinking about where you can put that. You have a K block, you might be thinking about where you can put that. You know you can't put the K block, since K is going to be by itself, in R. You can't put it in U. You can't put it in S because there needs to be more S's than T's, so that means that K has to go to T. Well, now we've got F, L, M, and I left over. Well, F and L will be together. M and I can't be together. But we need to have at least 2 in S so we have more S's than T's. M and I together won't work. So no matter what, we're going to have to put F and L into S. Maybe just F and L, or maybe together with M or I as well, but at least F and L will have to go into S so that we can have more S's than T's. And then M and I, we don't exactly know what's going to happen with those, so we'll leave those off to the side for now. All right, so the things in the game board are the things that must be the case. The things that are not in the game board are the things that could be the case. We're being asked to find what could be true. So F's application is evaluated by R. No, F is definitely already F is in S for sure. Let's get rid of A. I is evaluated by S. Well, maybe. We don't have I in the game board yet, so let's hold on to B. K's application is evaluated by R. No, K is definitely going to T, so get rid of C. L's application is evaluated by U. No, L is going to S. Get rid of it. And then E, M's application is evaluated by T. Well, K is going to go into T. It's going to be by itself, so there's no way that we can get M into there. That can't be true. And actually, B is the only one that's possible. Right? So basically, they're trying to put the wrong person into the right spot, or the right person into the wrong spot, essentially. The wrong answer choices will contradict the information that you were able to infer, and the information that you weren't able to infer somewhere in there is typically where the right answer is going to sit. So let's go ahead and try the next question. Hit pause, see if you can find an answer that you like. And when you're ready to check your work, hit play again. Welcome back. We have another local question. If exactly 2 of the applications are evaluated by t, then each of the following must be true except. So what happens if 2 of the applications are evaluated by t? If there are going to be 2 t's and there's going to be more s's than t's, right, then we're going to have at least 3 going into s. So while there's 5 between s's and t's, plus the 1 in u, that's 6. There's only 1 more, that's 7, so we'll have 1 in r as well. We know who these are going to be, though. Well, we know that k is going to be by itself, so that means it's not going to go into s or to t, so k is going to go into r for sure. And then what about s and t? Well, we have the FL block. We've got an M, an I, and an H. And we know that the I can't go together with either the H or the M. So we're going to have to separate the I, the H, and the M. The H and M can go together, but the I can't go with either. We can't put F and L together in T because that would put I, H, and M in S. And H and I don't like each other, M and I don't like each other. So we're going to have to put F and L into S. And that leaves I, H, and M left over. If we put I into T, it'll be there with either H or M, and it can't. So we're going to have to put I into S and H and M into T. So if exactly 2 of the applications are evaluated by T, it looks exactly like this. So they're saying each of the following must be true, except the reason why we were able to make so many inferences is because apparently there are lots of things that must be true, that they're looking for. Anything that must be true, we're going to cross it off, and the right answer will be something that is either must be false or something that could be false. In this case, because everybody's placed, I would assume it's going to be something that must be false. Answer choice A says exactly 1 of the applications is evaluated by R. That's true. Get rid of A. Answer choice B says exactly 1 of the applications is evaluated by U. That's true. Get rid of it. C says that F's application is evaluated by T. No. That's our answer. F is going to be evaluated by S. So hold on to C. Answer choice D says I's application is evaluated by S. That has to be true, so get rid of D. And in E, L's application is evaluated by S. That has to be true, get rid of it. That leaves us with C as the right answer. Here's the next question. It's another local question, meaning that they give you a new piece of information, and then they can ask you for what has to be true. So if you struggled with making inferences in the last couple of questions, give it another try. See if you can find what must be the case based off of the new piece of information before you go into the answer choices. When you're ready to check your work, hit play again, and we'll look at it together. Welcome back. If the officer who evaluates M's application does not evaluate any other application, so now M is going to be by itself, which one of the following must be true? M is by itself and K is by itself. Where are they going to go? Neither of them are going to go to S. S has to have more, there have to be more S's than T's. So we can't have S just being 1. That means that M and K will have to go to R and T. We don't exactly know which way, but we know that they'll go to R and T, so we can flip-flop them between the 2 teams. And that leaves us with F and L and H and I left to place. And we can't put them into R and T. We have 4 more to go, and at least 2 of them are going to go to S. F and L will probably have to go there, because we can't put H and I together there. Yeah, so we're going to have to put F and L and S. And then H and I, well, we don't exactly know what's going to happen with H and I, but we know that they're not going to be together, nor will they be on R or T with M or K, since M and K are going to be by themselves. Right, so one will go to S, one will go to U. H and I, we just don't know what's going to happen with them exactly. So now we're looking for which one of the following must be true. M's application is evaluated by T. Things that are split options are things that could be true, not must be true. Right? We could put M into R instead. So get rid of A. Answer choice B says that L's application is evaluated by S. Well, yeah, that has to be true. Hold on to B. But let's just knock out the rest. C says that K's application is evaluated by T. Could be true, but it doesn't have to be true. K could go to R instead. So get rid of C. D says that I's application is evaluated by S. Well, we don't know where I is going to go, so no, that doesn't have to be true. And then E says that H's application is evaluated by S. Just like in D, we didn't know where I is going to go, we don't know where H is going to go either. So let's get rid of E as well. That leaves us with answer choice B is the right answer. Here's the next question. Another local question. Give this one a try on your own, and then when you're ready to look at it together, hit play again. All right, welcome back. So if F's application is evaluated by the same officer who evaluates I, that means that F, L, and I are going to all be together. But where? We can't put them together in T. That would mean that we're going to need way too many in S. We can't put them in U because if we did, that would be 4, which would mean we'd have 1 left for R, S, and T, and we wouldn't have more S's than T's. So the IFL block can really only go in either R or S. And if we run it out both ways, we have what are called local frames, where we see that the game could go in a couple of different directions, and we map it out both ways. This helps us to make inferences. So for example, who's left? We have M, H, and K in the top row and in the bottom row. M, H, and K. With M, H, and K in the top row left, we know that K is going to go by itself, right? And M and H they'll go together in S, right? So K will go into T. And so we can have more S's than T's. We'll put M and H together in S. In the bottom row, we already have 3 S's, so we're probably going to be having more S's than T's. We don't have to worry about that too much. Where's the K going to go? Maybe it goes into T. Who else do we have? We have M, H, and K. This row is a little bit less certain. So maybe we don't keep chasing and we just see what we get in the answer choice. So they're saying any of the following could be true except, right? A says that H's application is evaluated by U. Could it be the case that H goes to U? Well, in the bottom, we have M, H, and K. I think we could put H into U in the bottom row, put K into T, and M into R. Right? You can separate M, H, and K in R, T, and U. Let's get rid of answer choice A. That could be true. Answer choice B says that K's application is evaluated by T. K is evaluated by T. That could be true in the top row, so let's get rid of that. Answer choice C says that L's application is evaluated by U. L is evaluated by U. Well, we don't have that in either row, so that's probably going to be our answer. Hold on to answer choice C. Right? In the top row, L is going to R. In the bottom row, L is going to S. If you did try to put L into U, that would mean that you're not going to have more S's than T's. M's application is evaluated by S in answer choice D. M is evaluated by S in the top row. That works. Get rid of it. Answer choice E says that M's application is evaluated by U. In the bottom row, we don't really know where M is going to go. It looks like M could go into U, so get rid of E. And that leaves us with answer choice C as the right answer on this question. Here's the next question of the set. Hit pause, and when you're ready to look at it together, hit play again. All right, welcome back. So if F's application is evaluated by R, then for how many of the other applications is the identity of the officer who evaluates it fully determined? So this is an interesting question. They're going to give us this new piece of information, but they want to know how many other applications is it determined where they're going to go, right? Other than the one that they're giving us, F. So if we put F into R, we have to put L into R, and we get to count L. That is one of the other ones, right? Just because it goes together with F doesn't mean we don't get to count it. But we'll figure that out after we get everybody in or make as many inferences as we can. So if F and L go to R, who's left? We know that we've got a K. We can't put it into S. So K is going to have to go into T. Now we've got 3 left, M, H, and I. And we know that M and I don't go together. And we know that H and I don't go together. So how are we going to get more S's than T's? Well, we're not going to put an I in there. If we did, we wouldn't be able to get more S's than T's because we could put neither M nor H in there. So we're going to have to put both M and H into S in order to have more S's than T's. So the question is, do we know where I is going to go at this point? We know it can't go into S because it doesn't we can't go with either H or with M. Can't go into T because it can't go with K. But it could go in either R or U, so we don't exactly know where that's going to go. Other than F, we know L, H, M, K, and G. So that's 5. That's answer choice E. So that's it from the standard grouping game from Prep Test 71. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other characteristics that you need to pay attention to when you're working on standard grouping games. Probably the one that's going to be most obvious, the one that's going to be the most front and center to you, will be whether the game is closed or open. So what we mean by that is whether we know exactly how many players go to each team in a closed game, or whether it can change as you move from one question to the next, i.e. is it open. in a closed game, right, we might have something like this. If we have a closed game, if we know how many players go to each team, go ahead and use slots to pick that early. That way you have the structure of the game that you can work within. 34%, about a third of all standard grouping games are closed, which means that the other 2/3 will be open. You'll have more open games, 2-1, than closed games. In an open game, we don't know how many players go to each team, right? So we'll do the game without slots, and that's just fine. So in this game, we've got, let's say, 2 teams, team 1 and team 2, 6 players, F, G, H, J, K, and L, and they tell us at least 1 student is assigned to each panel. Well, numerically, lots of things can happen at this point. We could put 5 and 1 and 1 into 2. We could put 4 into 1, 2 into 2, 3 and 3, 2 and 4, 1 and 5. Lots of different things that can happen numerically. But usually they don't all work out by the time you get done with the rules. So if they added another rule that said that more students are assigned to panel 2 than to panel 1, you'd simply only keep those numerical distributions where that's happening. So it doesn't happen in 5-1, doesn't happen in 4-2, it doesn't happen in 3-3. The only ones that actually work would be to put 2 into 1 and 4 into 2, or 1 into 1 and 5 into 2. Those rules create 2 numerical distributions that are possible, and sometimes I can give you a toehold because those numerical distributions can help you see how the game might be limited. So the next thing to talk about are frames. What are the triggers in standard grouping games that tell us that we might want to create a couple of frames for this game? So frames, remember, are a limited set of possibilities. When the game has to either work in 1 or 2 different ways, or maybe 1 of 3 different ways, you can map out those ways ahead of time and get an edge on the game. But it's not always there. You want to be careful that you're not trying to force the issue, but you're taking advantage of it when it comes along. About a third of standard grouping games can be framed. If you're doing it more than that, you're probably pushing the issue. One of the ways in which we can create frames is with those numerical distributions. Right? It's going to create a limited set of possibilities. So for example, in that last hypothetical, where we had 2 numerical distributions, 2-4 and 1-5, we could just go ahead and just put down some slots to represent those frames. Right? Now we know we either have to be in the top row or the bottom row, and then we might be able to use those numbers with some blocks and anti-blocks to make some inferences along the way. So that brings us to the other mechanism that you might use in order to create frames, which are blocks. When blocks are limited to 2, maybe 3 places on the game board, it's not a bad idea to run it out. You put it in each of the different places where it can go. You see if that has any other implications in each of those rows. You don't necessarily look to force the issue. You don't necessarily try to find every single inference, but you can use that as a starting point, see what inferences follow, and then use that setup as kind of a master setup from within which you're kind of checking against the answers. So for example, if we have 2 teams, team 1 and team 2, 6 players, and we're going to put 3 players on each team. If we have a block that says that J and K have to be together, then there's only 2 places where we can put that block, either in team 1 or team 2. And if we run it out both ways, that might give us the beginnings of the information that we could then use in connection with the other rules to maybe make some further inferences. Finally, anti-blocks. Just like we can use blocks to create frames, we can also use anti-blocks. If 2 players can't go together and we've got 2 teams, right, this isn't necessarily going to work on a 3-team game, but in a 2-team game, anti-blocks are pretty helpful. We know, let's say, if J and K are not assigned to the same group, then that's an anti-block with J and K. We don't know which way they're going to go, but one's going to go onto team 1 and one's going to go onto team 2. And again, we could run it out both ways. The next thing to talk about is what happens if there's an uneven number of players to positions within the game. And while this is not super common, 14% of all standard grouping games have non-1-to-1 correspondence, meaning a different number of players to positions. It is something that you'll definitely want to pay attention to. When it's present, you need to be aware of it so you know how to deal with it. It could go a couple of different ways. So let's look at it from the perspective of closed and non-1-to-1 versus open and non-1-to-1, meaning we know how many players go to each team or we don't. If it's closed and non-1-to-1, imagine we've got 6 players, 3 teams, and 9 positions. We got 3 players on each team. Each player is assigned to at least 1 team, so everybody's got to go somewhere. And each team is assigned exactly 3 players, so 3, 3, and 3. Some of the players are going to have to go more than once in order to make this work, right? So What's the maximum number of times that any one player could go? Or what's the maximum number of players that can go more than once? This is a situation where we're going to want to try to run numerical distributions to see what's possible. In this case, there's a couple of different ways of doing this. We could have 4 of the players going once, 1 player going twice, 1 player going 3 times. Or we could have 3 players going once and 3 players going twice. We couldn't have a player going 4 times because, well, you can't be on the same team twice. The maximum number of times you could go is the number of teams that there are available. So now let's consider what happens when the game is open and non-one-to-one. If that's the case, this gets pretty complicated. So we're not going to look at this completely. This is actually going to create its own game type. If you have 5 players and 3 teams, and you don't know how many players go to each team, nor do you know how many times each player goes, if both factors are unknown, then this is what we would call an options game, where you're trying to create almost like a profile for each of the players, and which set of teams is each player assigned to. It says each player is assigned to at least one team. So for F, which set of teams is it assigned to? For G, which set of teams? And instead of using the column chart, we'd recommend using a table where you can kind of keep track of them, one next to each other. If you figure out that F has, is assigned to a particular team, put the letter of that row into the box. If you figure out that G is not assigned to a particular team, slash it out. And this way you can figure out who has what in common with whom. Lastly, subgroups. If you have different kinds of players, it's not a major deal. It's a little wrinkle that you can handle in the same way that you would deal with in an ordering game. You'll see subgroups about 12% of the time in standard grouping games. Let's say you have 3 adults, F, G, and H, and 5 children, R, S, T, U, and V, and they're to be assigned to one of 2 boats. So in this situation, we've got different kinds of players. Some of them are adults, and some of them are children. These are subgroups. To deal with subgroups, you can do it in a couple of different ways. Sometimes you can just write them in their separate areas, and that's perfectly fine. That's more than enough. If that's enough for you, that's more than enough. But if you're finding that you're having a hard time remembering who's who, you might start using other strategies, like you might use uppercase for one variable set and lowercase for another. This tends to work better when you have 2 variable sets and not when you have 3. If you have 3 variable sets and you're still looking for a way in which you can keep track of who's who, maybe you want to use subscripts. Right? You can put subscripts next to each letter, and that helps you remember who's who, like F as an adult or R as a child. But oftentimes you can get away with not having to worry about it too much and just track that information in the cast of characters area. So let's recap. Right? We're going to use the column chart as the foundation of our game board. Right? For each team, we're going to have a new column. The kinds of rules we're expecting to face would be position exclusions, ruling players out from specific teams, fixed positions where you're ruling players into specific teams, fixed relationships, building a concrete relationship between 2 players, and then conditional relationships, a hypothetical relationship between 2 players. And when confronted with blocks or anti-blocks, you might want to consider frames. So that's it for today's lesson on standard grouping games. I invite you to check out some of our other lessons or visit us today at lsatlab.com.